I call to order this King George County Board of Supervisors budget work session. We will start off with an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Granger?
Lord, we just we come before you humbly. We thank you for what you've given us, the blessings that you've bestowed upon us. We are excited about this time of season, Lord. It is an exciting season as we get ready to celebrate what you've done for us in order to be in a relationship with you. We thank you for your Son, Jesus, and what he did to bridge that gap so we can know you and come to you and talk with you. So just thank you, Lord, for that opportunity and that closeness that we have with you. So that's how you be with us this evening and help us to make good decisions, Lord, decisions that are in the best interest of this community and that will glorify you through our actions. And we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, everyone. I will open the floor up now to public comment. Anybody who would like to come up and give public comment, you have 3 minutes. Seeing none. Mr. Dines, anybody online tonight for public comment?
There's a call in one, but I'm not sure.
Okay, anybody have any correspondence or anything that they've received? Nope. I don't think so. Okay, take that as a no. So I've then closed public comment and we will open it up to fee approval, additional community development, citizen center, and fire inspection.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. These fees that we're going to go over were sent to me by email, a couple of them, and the other was already presented at an earlier work session. The first one is some fees that were omitted last year when you approved the new fees for the community development. And so Ms. Hall, the Director of Community Development, sent this to me, and this is her fee set for the items that were left out and cannot be included to update revenue until I have your approval. So I don't know if these are just a few minor items. I don't know anything about them other than that she left them out, change of use. I guess that's, changing from one type of location to another, say a house residence converted to a business or something. And then the accessory structure plan review. So any accessory structures that an individual would be adding to their house, there's a set fee for that. And then commercial demolition. And none of these were in the fee schedule that were approved last fiscal year, for the beginning of this fiscal year.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Mr. Miller, is there any way to find out what the change of use is specifically?
Change of use.
We can find out.
I mean, because it could be open-ended. It could be many different things. It could be what you said, or it could be something else.
Yes, we will find that out for you.
Ms. Cobb is also going to look on their website to see if it mentions anything there.
Thank you, because I don't want to put something on our fee schedule that's even confusing for the public.
I can ask. I'll ask. I'll text Ms. Hall right now and see if she can give us that. Okay, we'll get you that.
And so, then Parks and Rec wanted to increase some of their rental fees. The only one on this list, this is for the Citizen Center, and they updated their fees in July of 2021, but he would like to propose if someone leases or rents out the entire hall at the Citizen Center to go from $60 an hour to $75 an hour. That's general fund revenue. Then he has another one, which is for field rental fees. The only one he's asking to increase is the supervision fee from $25 per hour to $30 per hour. And I think that's to make sure that we recoup salaries plus benefits for those individuals who are out there supervising. And then other facility rentals, he wants to go up on 3 of those. The elementary school gym go from 25 to 35 an hour. The middle school auxiliary gym, 25 to 35, and the middle school main gym from 30 to 40 per hour. And then the last is just all the different fees that Chief Moody presented to you in an earlier budget work session. He presented them, but we never took a vote on those, whether to go ahead and approve them. I believe he stated at that meeting that the ordinance already stated that fees could be charged, but we never had a fee schedule. And so there's 3 different pages of that.
Did we skip over 5 or did I just miss it?
Over which one?
Page 5, it was the activity or field rentals.
This was, I did talk about this one, supervision at the fields going from 25 an hour to 30 an hour.
Supervision is just having one of their staff members there.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair.
Good.
So when they had the 4th of July event and other events up there like Sealston and some of the other parks, and, the building and grounds are there, is there anything to recoup their
Currently, buildings and grounds, if they work at an event for Parks and Rec, we journal their salaries for that event over to Parks and Rec. So yes, the money goes back. The general properties budget is not hit for those hours.
so what does journal the fees means?
Well, journal means that when we process payroll, because they're different funds, we can't do a split on the payroll. So they're paid out of general properties, and then right after payroll is complete, Ms. Cobb processes a journal entry, which moves it from general properties over to Parks and Rec.
Thank you.
So then I know you're waiting to see if we can get something from Ms. Hall on that one. So I don't know. I'm taking it right now. You're not ready to approve any of those.
I have one more question on the fire prevention schedule.
Mhm.
Does that not require a fire marshal or some kind, like, could they do it without adding that position?
We currently have several individuals. If you remember back to Mr. Chief Moody's presentation, Chief Moody is he's the fire marshal.
Okay,
And then he has several others who can operate in that capacity as well.
thank you.
Chair. So you can have the fee because you do have the inspectors now. You can still, Ms. Hans said they hadn't had a fee at this time.
And two, without having a fee, it's really hard to estimate how much revenue could be generated from it until you approve a fee schedule and go ahead and implement those. And he gave me an estimate on the low side to put in the budget, but I haven't put it in there because the fee structure is not approved.
Ms. Cobb, I'm sorry, Ms. Hahn, looking at Vita right there. So these are all new. We don't currently have these.
The fire prevention, that's correct. We do not charge anything now.
All brand new.
Can we go back to the community development? Not a question, it's more of a statement. So when you go get a permit, let's say a homeowner, you gotta pay for a permit, you gotta pay for zoning, you have to pay for plan review, you have to pay for plumbing and electrical. That might just be a screened-in porch. So
If I remember correctly from Chief Moody's presentation, these are commercial.
No, wasn't talking about.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the,
So it gets rather expensive just to put on a screen porch onto someone's house. That's not even, building the house or something like that. So to clean that up a little bit. So I was really concerned about homeowners and just doing their stuff around their house. It's costing them a lot of money to just do their stuff around their house. I want to price them out. Thank you.
Structure plan.
In looking at what is on the community development pages, so a change of use is obviously, so you have, say you're a tenant of a commercial building or you're a tenant of a like an apartment, and all of a sudden you change the use of that. And I mean, the perfect example would be a commercial situation is that you're going to do an auto body shop and then you decide you want to do a daycare. That's where the change of use fee would then come into play. Is it that, you're basically having to come in and redo the usage of the building that you're occupying. And that's not with Heather's technical jargon. That's my interpretation of what that reading would be. And I would think if you want, we can hold off and wait for Heather to give us that information. Either hopefully she can get back with us. I know Chris texted her, I texted her. And if she can get us that information, we'll give you a better answer to that. But if not, then we can hold off and come back later when you have more information about maybe some examples of how that works.
Yeah, because on that explanation, I know you're still looking for the information. I'm not a fan of it. So I think that's a undue fee. But I don't know if it's required or.
if you notice in there, it's also a zoning. So it's something that they have to look into to see if it can be done, whether it's zoned for that type of business.
Right, but
Believe.
I'm looking at it, say you do have a daycare and then now the business goes defunct, somebody comes in there now and would like
No,
to
it
run a
would be,
restaurant.
it would be the same person.
Okay, so it's not.
So, and she gave me she just texted me and she said, so it's like taken from retail sales to a restaurant.
With the same owner, not
Yes,
a new.
same tenant.
Same tenant, okay.
Right. So if you go to I think a perfect example would be, say, somebody has a bait and tackle shop, and then they want to decide that they're going to open up a bar. That's change of use. You would have to go through the process of rezoning that or going through the community development, whether it involves the zoning, if it, it might fit within the zoning, but the actual change of use would trigger this fee.
Right, that makes sense. And you would have to go through the process, but that seems like an added tax just because you're changing the use.
So you still have to have plan review and you still have to have plumbing and water and all that other stuff in the site. So that is an added.
So I would not be in favor of this one.
Well, and I'm happy to have Heather prepare something that we could bring back to you all so that you could consider it. It's
Mr.
something
Chair.
that would be helpful.
It's actually on the website. I just finally found it. It took me a while and I'm really sorry. I tried to copy and paste the link to email it to you just now, Ms. Bender, and my Outlook is not opening. But if you go to the county website and type in the search box, commercial change of use, it should come right up. There's a document. So basically it says when a new tenant occupies an existing structure, the following information is needed, provided that the use does not change and no work is to be done. A building permit is not required in order to issue a new certificate of occupancy for the building. But if the use is going to change, then yes. Like if someone had an office building or an office space that was rented and someone wanted to come in and put a hair salon in there instead, that would require a change of use for that
Right.
building.
I understand it, and I understand you would have to go through the zoning again because it's a change of use, but that just seems like an extra fee. My opinion.
So is she saying that these are new fees or are they just changed fees? Because I know we already have these in place.
Or these are
So
increases.
I don't know if these were just
Increases to the
adjusted.
Existing fees.
It was a
to
change
the
that-
existing fee.
Oh, okay. 'Cause-
That she didn't change last year when she changed the rest of the fees. So,
Yeah, because I know definitely the first two we already have. So they're going from the 150 and the 100 and the 100 up to these new totals?
I'm not sure, well, no, the new total is, I think the set fee isn't the new fee. Because the state levy, which we have no control over on any of our fees that require that, is a 2%. And then the one is the zoning on the change of use for a total of 278. And then the accessory structure would be the 100 plus the 2% at 102. So I'm not sure what the previous fees would have been.
So maybe we just wait and have Ms. Hall come in to explain this, because obviously it's an increase, but from what to what, or from what to this total year. So
We'll have you
maybe
more
get,
information.
maybe get Heather to come in next Wednesday or something, or whenever we meet again.
We can do that, or,
Could you come to that?
Mr. Chair, I actually just found the commercial demolition on the current fee schedule. Commercial demolition right now is listed as $50 plus a 2% state levy equals $51. So it looks like the new proposed fee would be,
Mhm.
moving it from $50 to $100. But yeah, I think we're having to do a lot of work up here trying to sort this out. So in the interest of time, I'd be willing to move forward with a motion to direct staff to advertise the proposed fee schedules for the fire rescue fee schedule and the Parks and Recreation amended, but not move forward at this time with the community development.
what I can do is part of Tuesday's meeting, as part of my county administrator's report, I could have Ms. Hall be present and provide you with an update. I know it's merging two meetings and you don't necessarily need to take an action at that meeting, but it would at least provide you with information of how she would apply it and how it applies in general. Sounds to me like you need that clarification.
Mr. Chair, I only made that proposition because finance staff indicated that they have not factored in any of this proposed revenue yet in what we're looking at, because we have not approved or directed staff to go ahead with the fee schedules. That's the only reason I did that, just to try to give finance some more data that they could give back to us to continue our number crunching.
Chairman,
Collins.
so does anyone have a problem with the fee schedule for the fire and rescue, the inspections?
No.
Can we move that one forward?
I have no problem with the Parks and Rec either. It's just the community development.
With a question on the Parks and Rec, if I may. So they're getting rental fees. So there's a use agreement with the schools, and they're making money off the school property. The schools are paying for the electric bills and any capital improvement or any other type of stuff. So if you're just paying for the personnel to man it, I think that's okay. But if you add in electrical, like the fields light fee, maybe the field for the Sealston light fee is okay, but not at the middle school, because the school already pays that fee for the lights. Kind of a double dip.
Page 5, yeah.
It's probably for the electricity for the,
So I know they have some portable lights as well. Is that to use portable lights or is that just to use the lights at existing fields? I don't recall off the top of my head.
I'm not sure how
Okay.
Chris Clark, what he may have worked out with the schools and the use of it. So that would be a question for him. And he usually is online, but Mr. Don says he is not this evening.
Sounds like we'll have Chris at the meeting. I know he has an agenda item coming up on that on Tuesday, so we can have him prepared to talk about that as well.
Because I was under the impression that Mr. Muncie's budget took care of all the electric for the fields and stuff. I mean, outside of any school related fields.
I believe that's true, isn't it? We have not moved that over yet.
For the, and so this is just for the use of the schools' gyms. And that, I think that's why Mr. Collins was mentioning electric, because the schools pay the electric bills at the school location. But Mr. Muncie does, or does he? I think, yeah, Chris only pays for the citizen center, or does Mike pay for that too?
Really, the schools should recoup the money from their buildings. Except for supervision.
I mean, this says field rental fees. What does that have to do with the gym and the school?
Baseball fields, softball fields at the middle school.
I know that we have a use agreement with the schools, and I know that Mr. Clark has indicated that it's time to relook at that. And I don't know that that's what this is about, but I know that there's going to be obviously fees that we build in that for the use that the schools have to recoup, but also that the schools are charging us, correct? Is that how it works?
Schools don't charge.
Okay.
I guess the other question is find out from Chris how much the middle school property and the high school property is used for field use.
Okay. We'll have Chris here.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed fire prevention fee schedule as presented.
Second.
We have motion properly second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. And I guess we can just wait for Ms. Hall and Mr. Clark to get with us the next meeting to kind of go over the rest of those things.
Yes, sir.
Tonight before the meeting, each supervisor was presented with a general fund revenue spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet, just for the sake of getting discussion started, reflects a 68-cent real estate tax rate and a $3.25 personal property tax. That results in total general fund revenues of $64,663,168. Also, there were two different general fund expenditure sheets at your stations. The first shows fully funding all department requests at the current salaries. The schools, when they were here, presented the top dollar amount that they said if the House version were to pass. So I went ahead and plugged that in there. And then the three capital projects that were in scenario 2 from Mr. Lau's presentation from Davenport, that comes to a total expenditures on the capital, on the general fund side of $64,823,884. And then when you increase all salaries up to a minimum 32,000, that takes the general fund expenditures to $64,850,027, which you can see in either one of those scenarios, based on the revenues that I plugged in, you're going to be short, just if you funded everything. So just wanted to give you a visual, and then we can plug in some different numbers into the spreadsheets if you would like to take a look at different scenarios.
It's short.
One thing I forgot to pull up at the time was
About 160,000 is what it looks like to me, just eyeballing it, but I'm sure we could get the exact number.
What was the school amount that you took from the house?
it's on second page of that worksheet.
Of this one with the red?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's the revenue. If you go to the expenditure spreadsheet, you have two of those. One that says with living wage, one without.
For the second page?
On the second page there, and you start seeing where it says non-departmental, and you'll see transfer to the schools.
Okay, thank you.
I wonder if I have a machine.
Chairman,
Mr. Collins?
general question. So as I flip through the 49 pages of each department, there is a ton of maintenance service contracts, a couple $1 million worth. It seems that it's outpacing, each year it's outpacing last year by 25%.
Those maintenance service contracts include things as well as the service contracts for different systems throughout the county. So I'd have to look at each one to tell you, but most of those have a built-in increase, like for our financial system. Is that 5% a year that it increases? So that's throughout the county. So I know you probably looked and saw that in a whole lot of different departments. So, you know, if you wanted to look at those, we'd have to go back in time and pull up all of the different ones. And, but generally, you know, that's the kind of like the world we live in, everything that goes up generally. At a lot of our contracts that we have a set contract for increased by CPI. So if CPI increases, it's going to be an automatic increase. We've been working with some recent contracts that we've let that want a guaranteed amount, and we try to keep it to CPI. But some of them, you know, that have been around for a while do have a set percentage each year.
I think a lot of them need to be reviewed because they're getting overpriced.
But those aren't gonna include like, you know, the air conditioning system, we're talking maintenance contracts, we're going wide on that. I mean, it's gonna have Chris's stuff, it's gonna have phones.
Yeah, it's going to have
It's gonna
countywide,
have-
and
But
it's
we, and the department heads review them obviously, and they, you know, it's part of their budget, so they're pretty attentive to these things. I don't think anybody's just letting them go. I mean, they're fighting these guys all the time, you know, to make sure that we're getting the best value. You know, and if it's something that you want to look at, I'm happy to provide that. You know, I think we would just, like I said, we would have to go through all of that and have the department heads here who represent the particular contracts and be able to speak to you about that.
And items that are under, all of our contracts that are over the $50,000 limit where we have to have a contract for, those are, they're, have an initial contract period and then a number of renewals that are possible. And at the end of the life of the contract, we do rebid. But when you rebid, you're pretty much going to be, the prices are going to increase, regardless if it's the same company or someone new taking, getting a new contract.
I think that they need to be more competitive because I see it's just leaps and bounds. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was travel conference fees for all departments. So the first one I have on community development, 28,822. So if you go through that, I didn't do all the math, but the fire department 68,000. That was the sheriff's office. The fire department was 100 and some thousand. Well, that's not their dues and memberships. That's travel and conferences. Do you have a policy on room rates?
That's something that I wanted to look into because the conference fee itself is the conference fee. And I don't believe right now that we have a policy that, I believe for the board, there is a policy, but there isn't one for the county. And that is on my list of things that I want to get taken care of. And because coming from the state, you have a travel policy for hotel fees and your meals and incidentals, which the state now follows the federal dollar threshold. And so that's what I would like to see in the county, but it's something that we have not worked out yet.
So that will save a lot of money in general, because if you do the government rate, instead of having a waterfront room, you have a government rate and you get the best room you can for the government rate. So I think there's a huge savings in there.
On hotels,
We do.
on hotels, we do try to get the government rate,
Yeah, we do that, and
but the meals, we don't.
we don't. I'm sorry.
Countywide, is there a policy on the government rate? There's the maximum amount for this location, like Virginia Beach, as opposed to, let's say, Appomattox? There's usually, it's a rate schedule for different locations.
Right, so we don't have a written policy that conforms with the GSA policy. But what we've been doing in the past is when department heads or whoever books the room, we do go out and book for the government rate because normally that is the cheaper rate. And so we do try to abide by, not really a written policy, but there is a policy, unwritten policy, I'll say that. And as far as the travel and training, they're making up for last year because all of that was taken from their budgets. So that's why I'm pretty sure it's a little excessive this year because they have certifications that they do have to get.
So certifications is one thing and training is another. So I can be trained on 50 different things, but I only need this certification in this one. And maybe I get this one, but so I've seen that there seems to be a lot of training that I never want to call it unnecessary, but
But also,
this guy goes to training 10 times a year and this guy goes one.
and along with the certifications, you have to have so many, different people call them CEUs or CPEs. You have to have so many training credits in order to get your recertification. And I know that Levita and I both attended a virtual procurement forum this past year so that for me to get my credits for recertification, which I was due by the end of this year. And since I've been the acting procurement manager, I needed to keep my VCA. And But because it was virtual, that fee was only like $150 or something for that conference. But then, so I think a lot of the training that are in there are things that people need for their continuing education in order to get their recertification.
I think if you dive down in that, you would probably see some excessiveness.
Well, I mean, I will respectfully disagree that our departments are excessive. I think that what Ms. Cobb is saying is, if you're looking at it as it was last year to this year, they didn't do any travel last year because COVID. I mean, the budget that was adopted cut that out. So there is going to be a little bit more, I think is what she's saying, because they're trying to catch up. I don't believe that you have department heads or employees that are excessive. I mean, I've been in organizations where you fight that, but this is not one of those organizations. And I would also suspect that, I mean, we're happy to dive deep and go back and legislate all these things. But I thought that the plan was we had specific departments come to you, and that was the opportunity to dive deep into their operations. And that was back in March. And I thought that was the plan that the board had agreed to. We're happy to go back, but I do think tonight's work has got to be set a tax rate. And then we can go back in and dive down and cut that tax rate. But you have to tonight set a tax rate or publish a tax rate so that we can set the public hearing. And then you can go down from there. And that would be the time, if you want, and the rest of the board agrees, we can look at the maintenance contracts. We can go into deeper dives about the training or some of your other concerns. But I mean, I don't know that we're here to, and we are not prepared to.
Not here to talk about any monetary, we're just here to set a tax rate. Is that my understanding?
Well, I provided a recommendation of cuts at the last meeting. And so that is what we're recommending is included in here. And then what we had said was you need to set a tax rate that you will then instruct us to work, and you have to publish a tax rate. I'm sorry, I'll get that right. You have to publish a tax rate so that you can have a public hearing, and you are then able as a board to lower that tax rate before it is actually adopted.
I understand completely what you're talking about, but this is a budget work session, and I thought we were working on the budget.
That's fine. If there is a direction that comes from you all as a board that you want to look into these things, we'll have to come back to another meeting is what I'm saying. I don't know that we can get, if you want to set a number that says, okay, all the staff is going to not train or not, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But
Please don't put words in my mouth. That's not what I said.
Well, I'm just trying to facilitate us moving forward as a staff so that we can answer your questions.
I think Mrs. Kupka has questions she wants to jump in on.
So I was going to ask the question of you at the last meeting, you presented on page 4, county administrator proposed cuts totaling $354,102. Are those cuts included in this scenario?
No, they're not. And that's what I had on the
Thank you.
slide that said we hadn't done anything.
So
we were waiting
if
for
we need a
direction.
starting point right here, right now, at a minimum, what you're suggesting, Mr. Collins, making some cuts is, would there be board consensus to at a minimum look at this? Because if we're talking about needing 160,000 or so to get to where maybe we have a number, and staff or the county administrator has proposed $354,000 of cuts, why don't we start here with this and work through this list? And that's twice what we need, almost right there.
I think that's a good idea. Mr. Collins, I do like your point on the get a travel, policy in writing as opposed to the unwritten. I think that's a very good point. We don't have something written out. We certainly need that for future. So I don't know, you guys are interested in having them pursue that?
Sorry, I was looking.
just have staff, look into doing a written travel policy on that, like she was talking about. I think that's, yeah,
Yes.
that's a very good idea. So,
I would agree. I mean, we do need that
Yeah.
kind of overall guidance. If there's some things that we need to give confidence to board members that were not excessive, I would agree 100%.
and like Mrs. Kupka said, we can, look at that, that starting point with the recommendations that staff has given us and go from there.
Mr.
I
Chair,
guess, can I ask it? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
can I request then, because some of us have this and some of us don't, and also I like having this, I can barely see up on the screen, but I know I like having things in paper here in front of me, and I brought mine because I do this little binder, but not everybody does. So can we get staff, someone real quick and in a hurry to photocopy this so everybody has their own copy of it, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
As a clarification under a policy, a travel policy, am I to assume that is just for the county? Yeah, I'll make it for the service authority as well, but is that going to apply to the schools?
So we don't have anything to do with the schools. They have their own budget. They set to whatever their travel and conference fees are. It's not for the service authority either. This board doesn't have any control over the service authority. Right, it's just.
Well, I'll recommend to the service authority that they put a policy in place. Because I think in fairness to everybody that there needs to be a policy across the board on everybody.
I don't disagree, but.
Yeah, it's not going to apply to the sheriff's office, not going to apply to schools. So just, our regular county folks, departments. Thank you.
So one more big item. So office supplies for all these departments. So they're buying it separately, not together. So you get a better deal when you buy together.
So, I've only been with the county for about 1.5 years now, but if we went to buying as a whole, people have different needs at different times. Right now, we do not have storage space, nor, someone who could regulate the usage of those supplies. Each department head currently approves any office supplies that are purchased by their department.
But so I'm not trying to argue with you in this matter. I'm just trying to present savings and good financial sense. So there's no way that going through all these office supplies that they're getting the best deal. And as far as storage, they can store their own stuff. If the treasurer's office needs 500 reams of paper, they can store their 500 reams of paper in there.
And
County storage area.
Yeah, but if different people need paper at different times, and if they have less space to store them, I'm not saying that it's not a good idea, because I know the state did, and I'm not sure if they still do, had a contract with BM Wilson, but you had to buy such a large quantity of it. And a lot of these places that do have state contracts, you can purchase through some of the office supply stores at the same rate, because they work with BM Wilson to purchase, to pass those on and they purchase from BM Wilson, who then.
So is the county on the state rates for?
That I would have to look into that. I'm not positive. I know this is coming from my experience as the state, which I haven't used the BM Wilson contract in many years, because you have to buy such a large quantity.
What we could do is provide you with some options about how to, do what you're talking about. Do you go to like the old central stores that, some governments have, or do you have a more, a central procurement process where it's like, okay, we're going to do the bid. Y'all can go, you can do your thing, but here's this is the firm you use, or this is the process that you use. It's coordinated through finance so that they're not going over. I understand what you're saying, and we can look at that. I don't know that we can do it this year.
Buy one pen, or I go buy 100 pens. I'll get a better rate on 100 pens.
Yes, and I think that that's something that we can definitely bring back. I think you have to keep in mind that Ms. Hahn she's still wet behind the ears. I'm very wet behind the ears in terms of the county's experience with King George County. But Ms. Hahn came in November of 2020, and so she's dealing with some financial systems that were in place before her. And I can rest assured and give you confidence that if you give her that task, she'll implement something.
Mr. Collins, we talked about this in a couple of years past as well. I mean, and you make very valid points on that, but I know a lot of it was, how do you deal with a quartermaster or whoever person you're going to have? And then, a lot of the different departments have very specific things that they need as opposed to, pens that everybody would use. We've talked about it in the past as well. And a lot of that makes sense on the bulk items that all the departments use, but some of them, they had very specific needs and it didn't fit. But
Well,
yes, that makes very good sense.
Commissioner of Revenue pens. I was talking about the bulk supplies. Paper is the same paper. Whatever weight you need is the same weight. On and on and on. A stapler is a stapler. So anyhow, I don't want to beat that one down, but I think it's good government business to do it that way. So can I get in a few other things? I'll try to go through as fast as I can.
Sure.
So Ms. Hahn, the $240,000 wage for the county attorney, is that just for the county attorney, or is that her, the person that's not being filled?
That is, she currently has a recruitment out for a assistant county attorney. So that includes both positions.
Okay. And on the same thing, she has $90,000 for professional legal services. That's why we had her.
Do you want to address that?
I believe that was something that she's held over that Mr. Britton had put in if there was ever a conflict or you needed to have specialized attorneys come in. I know that, for instance, there is a particular subdivision, the Sedgwick Crossing case, that has required outside counsel. So that's why I believe that number is in there.
So it may not necessarily require outside counsel, but but the thing to keep in mind would be the amount of time it would take.
Right.
And that particular topic, Mr. Britton said he could do it, but it will pull him out of the county so much, then it's going to be a problem for him as an individual to be able to litigate that case as well as provide all the legal services. And so whenever you start moving into litigation, it's kind of a net in order to just be able to do some of those things, because you might go beyond what your staff can currently support and you need to surge in order to meet those needs for a situation like that.
So at 90,000, we can't reasonably make it 50,000 and then have an amendment to the budget when the time comes, because there's usually cost savings through the year. There has a specific your case. I don't think she can.
I mean, anything's a possibility. I'd be hesitant to reduce it. If I'm going to trust my legal counsel. If they say that I'm not an expert in it, and I would like to have it on hand and have it available and ready to go when we need it. So.
I'm sorry.
I could jump in on that one too. We did use it when we filed for the WIP 3. We used Aqua Law, and Mr. Britton Mr. Gregory too. They just were not. That's very specialized, water law. So that's important. Also, you have to have that figure in case you have to get somebody that is very specialized.
And it's also the figure that they use, like if Commonwealth's attorney's office has to do work, it's also part of that amount, isn't it?
That is included, I think, in another line. We do use the Commonwealth attorney, one of their deputies to do ordinance reviews, I believe is what he does. And that's in a separate line item.
All right, that's a separate one from that.
And also, I think we have some ongoing issues with maybe in community development with a project that's ongoing there that may require outside legal counsel.
Next one.
Let me know if we need to stop.
We'll let you roll unless somebody else wants to jump in on
So
something.
tell me about the line of duty, the 32,000 for the emergency services. Is that a fee or is that in case someone passes and they need to do, insurance or something like that?
Can you pull up the individual? So is this the EMS or the fire and rescue?
Emergency services, line of duty, 32,552.
The EMS.
Give us a moment. If you have another question, we could do while we're researching that one.
Okay. Fire and rescue, other operating supplies, 49,000.
Can you look at that?
And Ms. Holland's department, finance department, 89,000 for the auditing. So are we paying for the service authority audit too, or just that one audit?
That is just for the county audit.
It's $90,000 for an audit?
That's not all that's in there. That also, we pay for the financial advisor out of finance. We pay for the audit with Robinson Farmer Cox for the county.
And I'm good with that now.
Okay.
I didn't know what.
Yeah, and then there's also a cost allocation plan.
So did you all cut out the computer hardware for the human resources? Cut out the human resources? Is that it?
We have that on the list.
Talk
On the
about
cut list.
We are proposing to,
The hardware.
it's not hardware, it's a system.
Yeah, it's right there, right after HR specials.
Why is this from 23?
That
Are
line,
you
what
referring to
that,
the training system, the software for that, the service?
Up there, it's up there on the list, Mr.
it's
Collins.
NeoGov and
Does-
join the state LMS. And so what this figure does is it takes the amount for NeoGov, and we have talked with the state of the Commonwealth of Virginia. They have a learning management system, and they would charge us $4.25 per person per year to use their system. And Amanda and I have been going back and forth with the administrator of that system to find out if we can do some special curriculums and that kind of thing. And the short answer is yes.
Well,
But he's in the middle of updating their whole catalog.
My proposal is we take it out, everything, because we don't have an answer for you. And I don't want to say we're going to go to the state yet. I'd like to circle back and figure this out a little better. And I think for whatever reason, this is like some kind of like a golden toilet, you know, I don't know why, but I understand you need some more information and you need, you know, a little better understanding of this. So we'll pull back. take it out completely, and we'll bring it back throughout the year as a discussion item before we make any commitment, if that's fair.
Works for me.
The NeoGov, you just asked about the hardware system, the computer software system that was the learning management system.
Did you already take that out?
What Ms. Hahn was saying is we took it down to a level that was going to, so we were proposing to take out $21,775. I'm proposing that that can go down completely, zero, because we need to back up and punt and start over again. So that'll come down a little bit more. We don't have a number because I think what Ms. Hahn was saying is there's a way to do it through the state. But until we get that fully understood by staff, I can't recommend to you that you do it. So we'll zero that out completely. You can cross that off your list.
Okay.
That line would add another $2,125 to it, is what I've used to figure that. That would be the cost for 500 people to use the state system.
Ms. Kupka has the answer on the line of duty.
Yes, may I, Mr. Chair? So Virginia Line of Duty Act provides benefits if the locality participates, and our locality does participate. And so that is our annual premium. It's like insurance, so that if we have a line of duty death in the execution of performing emergency services for our community is what it says, then that's how we get VRS to pay out a claim for the family.
So I didn't see it in the sheriff's office though. So they have line of duty also.
So my guess is, Mr. Collins, is because it has to do with emergency services in general, is that it's only carried in that one budget category.
Or at the sheriff's office too.
Sheriff's Office shows a miscellaneous line of duty act as
They have
well
that
for
too?
$26,842 in their budget request.
So it's probably based on how many personnel they have as well.
Hazard to guess.
Yeah.
Per person.
Okay.
And if you, Ms. Cobb can let you know what the other operating supplies that you ask about.
I think you asked about fire and rescue, other operating supplies. So it's things like their fire hoses, hazmat gear, tools, and things of that nature. Ms. Hahn and Chief Moody, they did reduce that line by $2,000. So it brought it down to $48,100 for that line. And that's in fire and rescue.
Okay. Mr. Dines. Just tell me when you want me to stop, Mr. Chairman. 262,000 for telecommunications.
Which budget are you
It's in
looking
the
at?
information technology.
I pay for everyone's internet in the county, so it adds up each office and the redundant internet, just in case the main goes out. So it's pretty expensive. We have two different types. We have fiber, and then we have cable modems through Breeze Line. So depending on the speeds that the offices need, that will raise the price of the device that connects to the internet and passes through the higher speeds. And also I think including that is probably the service from, like today when our phones went out, there's a line item in there for service requests that had to be done when the equipment breaks down. I'm trying to think of what else. I'm sorry?
At the sheriff's office, the voice over IP.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then we have maintenance contracts tied into that as well for certain services on each of those.
But you have a separate one for maintenance contracts of 130,000.
That's for, what's the description?
Maintenance service contracts.
So that's for, like we were talking about, BAI, that's our financial service that we have for the AS400. So they have pretty much broken down things by module. So each department, like the community development has a building inspection module. The treasurer has the treasurer's module, kind of guided with the commissioner of revenue as well, since they take in revenue. And so each one of those is what we were talking about, that usually goes up 5% each year. And then we also have a maintenance contract that we have to pay twice a year. And that usually goes up as well, just the same 5%. And I think this year, one of them went up 7%. So we don't really have a way to get out of that until we bring in our new financial system, because that's how they make their money, basically, is charging us these maintenance agreements, because you have to have it, or when you need help to fix something, to bring something back from their cloud backup, they have to have something to reference, and they won't do that unless you pay. So that's why that one's pretty high as well. Oh, and also we have for our Office 365 suite for the whole county, we had 300 licenses, and that went up. When we first started, we only had 175 employees, but we've had so many people added in over the last 4 or 5 years, and more people that have been in need of email and office programs. So it's in the cloud, so we have to pay that each year. That's like $66,000, 67. So it went up a little bit as well because we added more people, because we're up at 285 and growing. So I always try to get a little more to add for the growth, because as you see, sometimes we have requests from different departments to add staff.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Smoot Library, that professional services, other $10,000. Scott, you're on that board.
I am not.
No, who's on the board? Someone's on that board.
I was, but I'm not anymore. What is the question again?
The professional services other. They have professional services accounting, and then they have professional services other.
I have no idea.
Can't imagine what have other services for Smoot.
I work there all the time, and they do have a bunch of services.
No, I'm sorry. I know exactly what you're getting at. So the way it looks, the 3120 is basically how our general ledger is broke down. And that is really for standards as far as accounting. And that's why you see 3120 accounting for auditing. And then you see 3160 professional service. That's where all of her services are in her budget, is professional services, 3160. She doesn't have anything in 3120.
She does.
She
Oh,
does.
the 24, the
Small
audit.
portion of the audit.
Mm-hmm.
So auditing costs $10,000 for Smoot Library.
No. The auditing, the 3120 tab was only 2,400.
2,400.
The 3160 pays for her reading programs.
Mm-hmm.
She's got waste management because she pays for her own trash removal.
Fire safety systems.
Library of Virginia E-rate
Or
services.
fire alarm system service. So all of that is included in professional services, and that equals the 10,104.
So even though I've gone over this, the maintenance service contracts in the general properties of 181,000, is that, I thought that was recouped in other spots. I thought that was recouped.
General Properties does pay for things at the general funded facilities. And so like train, we have, is that for
That's for the HVAC.
for the HVAC system? That's in itself is 140,000.
But in a lot of these other line items, they're doing the same thing. Paying for air conditioning and so forth.
That if it's a general funded facility like this one, like your courthouse,
We do break it down by the facility, do we not?
mm-mm.
We break it down by the department.
I believe, that's the maintenance so that so like right now today, the upstairs in this building is atrocious. The unit out back is not working. With having a maintenance service agreement with Train, they come out here, they fix it, no additional charges. And just last year, Train was out here almost every other week during the summertime.
We might want to propose to increase that line.
Most of the maintenance service contracts only have a certain amount of time they come out here. In other words, most of them say, 60 times a year.
We would have to get the specifics on that, Mr.
Yeah, we
Collins,
have
and we're
the-
happy to do that. I think that's something that maybe we bring to you at another meeting, because I think we need to get all of the departments to have their, come and talk about this. Because I think you obviously have some good points that we just need to follow up with the department heads on.
The recreational general supplies of 40,000 for education and recreational supplies, but they have it in other lines for supplies also.
Is that under general properties,
That's under
Parks and Rec? Or
recreation general programs.
Mr. Chair, I might be able to answer that. Play It Smart. Don't they run the Play It Smart program at the schools,
is
and
a
wouldn't that be,
self-sufficient?
and so that's kind of like a pass through. It's a wash. That's the word I was looking for. No, that's not, that Play It Smart is not a grant. That's the fees are collected from the users, from the parents for the children, and then they use the fees
To pay
to
the,
pay the staff. And yeah,
yes. What you might have been thinking about was when CARES first provided funding to the county, we used CARES funding to provide childcare for staff's children, I think, or for working parents in the county to be able to take their children there since the schools were closed. But that was just the limited one-time CARES funding.
Not my fault, schools are closed.
But I'm saying we use CARES funding to fund it instead of charging these individuals to bring their children there so that they could work.
So there's, now we're in the Parks and Rec, the 41,000, is that the fireworks in there? Is that coming out of the tourism? Tourism? So the 41,000 for.
Which line?
It's 5898.
And those, if you recall, those sheets were sent to you all originally on March 10th. And that was prior to the last board meeting where the Board of Supervisors approved the TAC funding for the fireworks, or was that 2 meetings ago? And which we have removed 38,000 from that. But the sheet that you have was printed prior to that.
So it was included.
So it was included, but it has now been taken out.
Thank you. So I'm getting towards the end. So the Department of Social Services, the adoption subsidy, is that a flow through? 400,000?
Which is,
It's 5730.
which one of the DSS? Is
Public
that
assistance.
public assistance? Yes. Those are, I'm not sure of some of their line items are the county has to fund a small portion of, about 15%. I'm not sure if that's one of them or not. I'd have to drill down into it. But those funds are not, if the, program is not used, those funds aren't spent. And then you will have a lower expenditure and also a lower revenue side. But they're budgeting for what they anticipate.
Thank you.
Public assistance adoption.
All the questions for me tonight, I think. Thank you.
I don't know which adoption.
Anybody else?
I have something concerning the schools, and I know we give them money, but it's something that I will bring up during the CIP process. And I'm looking through their operations and maintenance. And once again, I would like to see more of a plan. This just seems to be more reactive and not proactive. And so, I mean, there's some issues we know in some of the older schools, and they need to have a plan instead of just being reactive and dropping money. So I will be bringing that up again. And I've brought it up for the last 3 years. So I would like to see more plan, because this isn't a plan.
Well, they had a plan. And then that plan just went away. Can't tell you why, but I know they had a plan at one time. So how about the schools, and as far as the budget? Is it the consensus of the board to fully fund it?
Not me.
What number?
So it's a little tough without having the state amount. I know so I'd mentioned at the last board meeting, I'd made at least a recommendation of looking at the composite index, which is 38.05% that the locality would provide, and then looking at the amount of the Senate and the House budget, and then figuring out, hey, if they were going to provide that amount of money, what would the localities number be if it was to be that percentage, 38.05. And so if it's the House, it would be $19,438,881. And if it were the Senate's, it'd be $19,865,439. So anywhere between 1.4 to 1.8 million increase from the previous budget. So that was just based purely off percentages as a recommendation. But I'll be honest, if I wouldn't be able to justify going 23. It's too much.
I agree. But we only can give them a pot of money. That's the way it works.
Mhm.
If I had my way, I would, if they had the CTE paid for and they actually got more CTE programs, I would be on board with that, but we don't make those decisions.
Correct.
I'm definitely on board with their salary increase, and us doing the other supplements for the non-SOQs. And the things category of, I think it's 1.9. I think that's a little bit.
Again, as you said, though, once the pot of money is handed over, they could make the decision to prioritize something that we may be willing to prioritize.
So we could sit here and talk about that all night. We all have our opinions on that one, but what do you guys need from us? Do you need us to get back into these sheets now for a tax rate and to go over these again? I mean, the school thing, we can't really do much until we get final numbers from Richmond. So to move this along, you need us to get into these, and
I think tonight what we need to do is maybe come up with a figure for the public hearing for the tax rate. And the General Assembly, I hadn't got all the way to the bottom, but in my presentation, I talk about, directing staff to advertise for public hearing at whatever tax rate that you all choose, high so that we can come low. And then I know the General Assembly will be back in Richmond on April 27th. So possibly after that timeframe, we might have a better picture on state revenues. And we can then, if I have good numbers on state revenues, then we could come back to you all and present the county administrator's budget option. And at that point, then you could advertise for the public hearing for the budget, is my suggestion.
So if I did my math right, which I'd be surprised if I did, without the living wage update, we're looking at 167.16 short, and with the living wage update, we're short 186,815.
That's also assuming these cuts are still in there, though, that we did not cut any.
They're not in that analysis that Mr. Stone
The
did.
cuts haven't been made there. And then whatever the schools, so you are looking at, and I think that because we have to advertise for the public hearing for the tax rate, because of the reassessment, we have to do it for a minimum of 30 days. And my hope is that before that 30 days get here, that we'll be able to have more concrete state figures so that we can then present the county administrator's budget option.
Mr. Chairman, I thought that we already agreed by consent in regards to the living wage. That was a go. We wanted to see that. Is that not true?
My understanding is we had consent that we wanted to see it, yes. So we haven't made a decision about whether we would fund it. If you're looking, I would advocate, I think it was about 26,000 roughly,
Yes.
that it looked
Roughly,
like it was,
yes.
difference between the non-living wage and the living wage. So I think that's a reasonable, I think that's a good return on investment, considering you get everyone up to that level at least.
So you need a tax rate. So I know we talked this at 68.
That was number that was thrown out last week, so it's
Right,
totally up to you all where you want to go.
I definitely think if we did advertise that, we'd be able to find all the cuts we would need. I'll be honest, I'm going to imagine we're going to come in significantly below that. But if we want to advertise high just to be on the safe side, I understand, there'll probably be some fallout from the public, because I appreciate that, because you see that number and what the impact would be to you if it were to go forth. But yeah, I'll be honest, I don't see us being at 68 and 325 even. But if we just want to put it out there so we can get through the process, and then once we get that information, at least then we've had the public hearing then, and even if it takes longer for the state to get the information, at least we've already gone through that process, and then we can set their tax rate at that. As opposed to,
You gonna make a motion for that?
Well, going through these numbers and, looking for worst case scenario, this doesn't give us a whole lot of padding. I would have thought maybe just advertise it even at 70 and then work down from there, just so, I'm looking at these steps down. And since we don't have a final number, these are just all scenarios.
does that take into account, is that from last week?
Yes.
So that didn't take into account the personal property tax increase either.
That's correct.
So that,
And at 325, I think it made a difference of about $4+ million in the revenue spreadsheet that I gave you all, 4,214,565. At last week, when we had talked about it, at the 350, I believe it was like 5 million. Yes.
Somewhere.
So here was the scenario on what additional revenues from personal property that I provided last week to you.
so every 25 cents is about $1 million,
Yes.
million one.
Yes,
Don, 350 is what we currently have, correct?
that's correct.
Okay. I don't mind putting that out there as the advertised rate, understanding that 68 for me is even too high, because that is a tax increase for all the citizens because of the valuation of the vehicles and the valuation of the homes and land. And then we have a lot of not only just young people and people of lower income, we have a lot of veterans, and we have a lot of retirees that can't afford these kinds of increases. So we need to be mindful of that.
Motion, any discussion on it? Granger?
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to go ahead and move a proposal for advertisement of 68 cents for real estate tax rate and $3.25 for personal property tax rate in the interest of having a discussion so we can come to a advertisement rate. Thank you.
Second.
All right, we have a motion properly seconded and have a discussion.
I'd just like to reiterate what Ms. Kupka, Mr. Granger, and Ms. Bender said. That's the advertised rate. That's not the rate that it will probably be. So just make it clear to the public that you have to advertise a rate in order to have a public hearing. And then please contact us and come to the public hearing. No further discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I said that last week, and you and I were having a little sidebar there. Where that comes from is the 68 cents on the fully funding, no cuts, the high side, the house side of the school budget. And then the shortfall on real estate, when you add in the personal property at that rate, is within, we talked about it, $160,000 or so. And we know just from the county administrator's proposed cuts, he's proposed $354,102 in cuts that we could make on his recommendation. So that will more than make up for that $160,000 or so. And again, my opinion on this is we're at 73. We were at 70 the year before, and I'd rather not just take it back to 70. I would rather really show a good faith effort that we are trying to work with the community and let them know that we understand their concerns. So that's why I would start at 68 for advertisement, knowing that we could still shave a few more cents off of that once we get a fuller picture with the state funding, particularly for the schools, because that's going to have a big impact on where we land with our local requirement. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
I got another. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, looking at those numbers, I forgot. I was looking at just the real estate, not personal property, but yes, I would agree 68 is a starting point. And just to reiterate what everyone else says, that is just a starting point. We can't go higher, we can go lower. So just to clarify that as well. So with no further discussion, all in favor?
Mr. Chair, can we roll call?
Sure. All in favor and roll call?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion passes. So there will be 68 advertised.
So we want to, I guess, to talk about, so under the current state law, you're to do it by the 15th of May, but given the fact that the state law isn't in effect,
Well,
we could do the public hearing on the 17th.
the state law actually
Which is
says
your
the
regular
15th
meeting.
if the state revenues have been approved, which they have not. And then after if the 15th is for returning it to the schools. So once the budget is approved by the state, we have 30 days from that date to return a budget to the schools. So I guess where Mr. Miller is going from this, so you've stated what you want us to advertise, but when do you want to have the public hearing? Because you're no longer bound by the 15th of May to have a budget back to the schools. The only thing is too, and we don't know, we hope when they come back on the 27th that they've done some work in the off time. But I have seen in state government before where they come down to the wire. They did say in some of the things that I watched that they hope to have at least by the middle of May. And there again, we would, if we don't have this, I mean, we could probably set the tax rates. The only thing would be the uncertainties, because the treasurer's office needs time to get the bills printed and out for personal property taxes. And I think they have to be out at least 2 weeks prior to the due date, which is generally June 5th. So, or we could extend that, but if it goes past the end of June, then we'll have to defer revenue back to the current fiscal year, which we can do.
I think that the operative question would be, can you, if you publish a public hearing, can you delay the public hearing? And, you can continue it to another night. So in other words, if you did it on the 17th and then we did not have a state budget, could you do it on your first meeting in June?
So, Mr. Chair, I can just from what
The public hearing.
stuff we had going on last year with, we had change in staff and everything, so we were a little bit later. We can advertise the public hearing, hold the public hearing that night,
Not do anything.
close the public hearing, but not take action that night. We do not have to take action the same night as the public hearing. There's no reason that we couldn't defer action. We could even have discussion if we wanted to, but defer action. We don't have to adopt it the same night as a
Yeah,
public.
and I think there's obviously there's extenuating circumstances. I think the board is prepared to make a decision on your budget. It's just, you've got a situation of uncertainty at the state level. So our recommendation would be then to hold it on the 17th. We'll advertise for it to be on the 17th, which is your second meeting in May, regular meeting, and you don't have to have a special meeting. So, and then if things change, then we do what Ms. Kupka was advocating.
Do you need a motion for the advertisement date, or is it just good to?
Probably want to do that. Yeah,
Okay.
let's make it.
I move that we advertise our tax rate for the May 17th board meeting.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. 17th.
And then I guess now we need to talk about the next steps. And really, until we have the public hearing and until we have the state numbers, I don't know if you want us to come back.
Sounds like we're getting some stuff back.
Well, what do you want us to do next? Do you want us to wait until we have state revenues, or do you want some of the questions that Mr. Collins had tonight? Do you want staff to come and answer those? I know that you want, I believe, Chris Clark and Ms. Hall to come. And
I'd like to see those numbers that I talked about.
So what I've got down is, one, we would have Ms. Hall come and talk about the change of use fee and what that all entails. We can have her come back on the board meeting on the 19th. Mr. Clark to talk about the fee structure that he had. Mr. Collins had asked specifically about maintenance contracts for the departments, kind of a deeper dive into that. And then I think you wanted to also look into travel and that kind of stuff. So what, perhaps take next week off and come back as a work session in 2 weeks to give us time to get all that together? Is that fair?
That'll be the 27th.
I can finally make a Bible study.
What's that?
I'm sorry, sidebar.
Okay, so we're going to do 5:30, April 27th, Wednesday. Okay, are we good with that?
Mr. Chair.
And if I missed something, let me know, Mr. Collins.
Am I allowed to make reappointments in a work session?
Public
What's
meeting.
that?
Reappointments in a work session? Reappointment.
Yeah, we have.
I think we have in the past. I mean, it is a public meeting, so if it's an appointment for a sub-board.
Yeah, the reappointments. I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Mr. Terrell to the Board of Zoning Appeals and Mr. Crawley to the Landfill Advisory Committee.
Second?
What was the Mr. Terrell's?
Board of
position?
Zoning Appeals. I only know that because I was on that website today and I saw his name.
BZA, and Mr. Carley,
Different
is it?
boards? Crowley. C-
Crowley, okay, sorry.
There you go.
But wouldn't Board of Zoning Appeals, isn't it a recommendation to the courts?
Yeah.
So we'll need to make a modification, Mr. Collins. If we could do them separate and just recommend to us forward the one nominee for the Board of Zoning Appeals to the courts.
I guess I recommend, let me have that back.
I think if you have two different people, two different boards, we do each have a motion on those as well.
Miller, can I have that back?
Okay. No, we're doing.
Can I have that back?
Mr. Mill?
Nope.
Because that's just a recommendation, like you said, that has to go to
So I rescind that motion. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Jeremy Crowley to the Landfill Advisory Committee.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
And I'd like to recommend Mr. Steve Terrell to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
What was that? I know. But are you not wanting to meet on the 27th? But
Are you guys all set? You all done? So I guess we're looking for a motion.
I move to adjourn until Tuesday, April 19th at 6:30 PM in the boardroom.
We have a motion properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned.